Okay, let's just dive right in. Welcome to this explainer, where today we are going to completely dismantle a concept that honestly, pretty much all of us have fallen for at some point. Think about the last time you were evaluating a relationship. You probably went through this kind of mental checklist, right? Do we like the same indie movies? Are we both obsessed with the same true crime podcasts? Are we both introverts? Pop culture has basically drilled it into our heads that if two people are just alike enough, the relationship is just going to naturally succeed. But what if I told you that literally everything the internet has taught us about relationship compatibility is clinically wrong? Seriously. Today, we're going to look at the actual clinical reality of what really makes relationships survive. 69%. According to decades of hardcore clinical research, 69% of conflicts in relationships are perpetual and completely unsolvable. Just let that sink in for a second. Nearly 7 out of 10 arguments you're having with your partner are about fundamental differences that are quite literally never going to disappear. Like one of you is an introvert, the other's an extrovert. You have totally different logistical preferences for managing your money, or hey, maybe you just fiercely disagree on the correct way to load a dishwasher. So, the absolute crucial takeaway here is this: if almost 70% of your conflicts are biologically unsolvable, then surface level differences and mismatched hobbies are clearly not the real problem when it comes to figuring out if your relationship is going to last. All right, moving into section 1, the great compatibility myth, the danger of the checklist. So there is just a stark contrast between what we think matters and what actually matters in the real world. Pop culture compatibility is all about the shared hobbies, the perfectly aligned political views, and matching up those personality types. It's basically the internet quiz version of love. But clinical reality, it operates on an entirely different level. A genuinely valid compatibility test is measuring what happens to your biological nervous systems when your primary attachment bond feels threatened. It's not about whether you both enjoy trail running on the weekends. It's about your capacity for raw vulnerability and your actual ability to repair a connection after a major rupture. Your survival brain doesn't care if you like the same indie films at all. It literally only cares if you are emotionally safe to be around. And this brings us to one of the most massive myths out there: the belief that highly compatible couples never, ever fight. Pop psychology loves to tell us that constant harmony is the ultimate proof of a good match. But clinically speaking, the exact opposite is usually true. Couples who proudly claim they never argue are frequently the ones closest to the brink of divorce. And why is that? It's because they've retreated into complete emotional withdrawal just to survive each other. The total absence of conflict usually means partners are just suppressing their genuine needs so they don't rock the boat. Total harmony is often just total hiding, which brings us to section 2: meet the sovereign ease, the third entity in your relationship. When we think of a relationship, we usually just picture two people, right? But in reality, there are always three sovereign entities in the room. There is you as an individual, there is your partner as an individual, and then there's the relationship system itself, which we call the sovereign eus. True relational success isn't about two identical people seamlessly melting into one uniform blob. Not at all. It is about two entirely different people making an active, conscious commitment to protect and nurture this third entity, the sovereign us, especially when their individual preferences totally clash. Let's dive into section 3, the waltz of pain, the real incompatibility. So when a relationship actually feels threatened, our nervous systems immediately kick into these protective survival strategies. Meet the first role, the relentless lover. This is your anxious partner. Their nervous system is incredibly sensitive to abandonment. So when they feel disconnected, their biological survival strategy is to protest. On the outside, this looks like desperately pursuing, complaining, or tossing out harsh criticisms. But beneath that anger, and you have to remember this, it's absolutely crucial. It is actually a frantic biological attempt to secure the bond and avoid being left all alone. Now let's flip it and look at the other side. Meet the reluctant lover. This is the avoidant partner. Their nervous system is intensely sensitive to rejection and failure. So to survive the absolutely crushing, agonizing feeling of inadequacy, their biological protector tells them to retreat. On the outside, this looks like shutting down, stonewalling, or getting deeply, deeply defensive. But they aren't trying to be cold. They are literally just trying to protect themselves from overwhelming shame. And right here is where disaster strikes. The anxious partner's desperate reach collides head on with the avoidant partner's protective retreat. Think about it. The relentless lover criticizes to get closer, which immediately makes the reluctant lover feel inadequate, so they withdraw. But that withdrawal looks exactly like abandonment to the relentless lover, so they pursue even harder and angrier. This creates a devastating negative feedback loop known as the waltz of pain. And guys, this cycle right here is the true cause of relationship distress, not the fact that you like different restaurants. When couples get stuck in this terrifying loop, they fall for what we call the versus illusion. You look across the room and genuinely believe your partner is the enemy. You start thinking, oh, we just have a toxic personality mismatch. But here is the ultimate reality you absolutely must take away from this explainer. Your partner is not the villain. The problem is not character flaw. You're both just trapped in a biological panic cycle. You're both wearing incredibly heavy protective armor because your attachment bond feels threatened. The cycle is the enemy, not each other. Moving to section 4, 4 questions that matter, the true compatibility test. If we ditch the generic internet quizzes and look at the deep science of emotionally focused therapy, there are really only 4 compatibility questions that actually matter to your brain. Question 1, when I am terrified, will you turn toward me? Just let the weight of that question land for a second. This is the fundamental biological cry of the anxious partner. They are asking if you'll be their emotional anchor when their amygdala, their brain's biological alarm system is just firing off rapidly. They desperately need to know that their panic isn't going to be met with cold logic or irritation. Question 2, when I fail, will you still accept me? This speaks directly to the core existential fear of the avoidant partner. They carry the secret heavy fear of inadequacy around with them. They need to know that if they don't perform perfectly, it's not going to result in permanent rejection or chronic shame. At the end of the day, they are just asking if they are finally enough for you exactly as they are. Question 3, can we survive the rupture? Now notice it doesn't say, can we avoid the rupture? Because let's be real, you will absolutely hurt each other. You're going to misunderstand each other and step on each other's toes. It's inevitable. True compatibility isn't about avoiding the gap. It's about your ability to sit in that painful disconnection without assuming the relationship is permanently over. It's trusting that a bridge can still be securely built even when things feel totally broken. And the final question, are you willing to provide the missing experience? We all enter relationships as what you might call babies in love. We carry these unresolved childhood emotional wounds right into our adult lives, and our partners will inevitably trigger those raw spots. So, the ultimate test of compatibility is whether you are brave enough to look at your partner's deepest childhood wound and offer them the exact comfort they never received, like giving reassurance instead of logic, instead of immediately throwing up your defenses. Let's move to our final section. Section 5, mastering the art of repair, dismantling the armor. Okay, the first step to actually repairing your connection is avoiding what we call the time machine error. When we get into a fight, our very first instinct is usually to aggressively fix the logistics of the argument. We want to rewind and debate the exact facts of what happened. But here's the hard truth. You literally cannot logic your way out of a biological attachment wound. If you try to jump straight to logical solutions before you've actually connected on an emotional level, you will fail. Your partner does not want to be managed or optimized by your brilliant logic. They just want to be understood. To provide that kind of deep understanding, highly compatible couples use frameworks like the rave method to soothe those biological alarms. It's a really clear, super memorable process. Step one is to simply reflect back what they are feeling. Just mirror it. Step 2 is to accept that this feeling is true and real for them, even if you totally disagree with the actual facts of the situation. From there, validate that their emotional reaction makes sense given their nervous system and their history. And finally, explore what they actually need in this moment to feel safe again. By stepping fully into their emotional reality without getting defensive, you're providing genuine relational repair. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to remember this quote. Real compatibility is never about being exactly the same. It is entirely about how your two nervous systems interact when you are fundamentally different. This is the core thesis of literally everything we've looked at today. The hallmark of a secure bond isn't finishing each other's sentences. It's the capacity to tolerate absolute difference without panicking. It's holding space for a totally different emotional reality without treating it as a life-threatening emergency. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. Next time you're sitting there feeling completely mismatched with your partner, ask yourself this. Are you actually evaluating your partner, or are you just evaluating your negative cycle? Remember, the incompatibility you feel might just be the heavy armor you are both wearing. Stop viewing your partner as the enemy and start mapping out your biological survival strategies together. Because honestly, once you dismantle that armor, you might just find you're deeply and beautifully connected after all. Thanks so much for exploring this with me today. If you want to work on this for real, try Figlet, my AI relationship coaching app. You can start for free, no credit card needed, at figlet.empathy.com.